When, when Jeff asked if I wanted to do this class or the youth class, I said neither. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I said it didn't matter. You let me know, just whatever happens, whatever happens. So we opted to end up being in here. I had told them already that I wanted to do a series of lessons on the judges. Now, when I say that I wanted to do a series of lessons on the judges, I literally meant series of lessons on the judges, because this is taken from the Bear Valley Bible Institute lectureships, famous on the West Coast. People will come literally across the United States, Canada, Mexico. They come to the Bear Valley lectureships because that's where the students go back to, right? They see the old college, they make new acquaintances and renew the old ones, and that lectureship in this just one book, and they do this every year, or they used to. They would take all the lessons, and they have the teachers send them an outline, and they put them into these books, hardcover books, and you pick them up when you get there, so it's already done. This one alone, in one lectureship weekend, we're talking 3 in one evening, 36 lessons on the book of Judges. So you're stuck with me for 3 years. But those 36 lessons, when I was listening to them, it's like what do you do with the book of Judges? How do you take a book that is full of negativity? The book of Judges is a funnel of a great people just come out of conquest up here on a funnel, and it comes down to a civil war at the end of the book. How do you take a book that is just full of people making wrong decision after wrong decision after wrong decision and not get bogged down in the negativity? I'm that guy that said, that's not a newspaper, that's a white piece with black lettering, and it's just full of negativity. I haven't looked at a newspaper. Well, I really haven't talked newspaper, because this started like 30 years ago. I started reading the Winnipeg Free Press. And it was just so like, oh, I can't take this anymore. I haven't read a newspaper since. And then they can bring on the TV, and they make it even better, because now they put a pretty face behind the negativity, right? It's the whirlwind. It's full of it. So I'm looking at you in this room and say, how can we be a happy people? We're full of negativity, right? But there's a smile right there. And there's one over there. How do we keep ourselves at a point where we're not full of all this negativity that's being pumped into us all year long? And believe it or not, it's in the book of Judges. Doesn't seem right, does it? But one of the things that I want to do is I want to start with an illustration. Because I think this is something that, when this introduction lesson was given at Bear Valley, there was about 400 people in the auditorium. And the guy gets up there, and I find out, this is my first time being at the Bear Valley lectureships. My son was going to college there. Otherwise, I wouldn't have showed up. I had no reason to go to Bear Valley, right? But I'm sitting in this lesson, and the whole auditorium is full, and the guy goes up there, and all the way up there says, hey, Bob, hey, Joe. And it's like, oh, this guy knows everybody. Well, what I did find out was, of those 36 lessons that were done, the ones that I got to go see, you don't see all 36 in a weekend, right? The one I got to go see is they were scholars. They had gone through the Bear Valley, and they'd gone into mission fields and spent years in the mission fields, and then they were invited back to do a lesson. Or they themselves were, there was one of the instructors from the Brown Trail was there. I move into Killeen, Texas. I hear the guy there was a graduate, and he had a work out by Killeen, Texas. And I got there, and I thought, man, this guy's going to be a scholar. He had a congregation of about 10 people. This was a variety of teachers, but the one that did the very first lesson, I found out that he was an Old Testament scholar. This is what he did, and he had done it for 40-some years. I'm not that guy. Matter of fact, when you're working through the week, and I'm sure you all know this, when you're working through the week and you get home late at night and you sit down, it's hard to study for 4 or 5 hours to become a scholar, right? But as this guy went through it, as deep as he went, as much as he grabbed that audience, because it was quiet in that auditorium. It was phenomenal. It was memorable. As he went through that, he made it simple. And he started with an illustration. Now, I'm not going to go exactly like his lesson. I'll warn you. It's an outline for me. But I want this to be a Bible discussion, a Bible study with discussion. I don't want to stand up here and teach all this guy said, all the things that I've looked up. I want us to say, hey, you know what? I know a little bit about that. Feel free, because I can get interrupted at any time. I lose my train of thought regardless of what you do. All right? So as I look at this, I want us to know this is a discussion. And so I'm going to start with one right now. Back in January 2nd of 2000, okay, this congregation was in an infancy here at North Jefferson. Am I right? Back in 2000? And yes, it was. January 2, 2000, sports buffs. Anybody know what was famous about that day in sports? You see, for me, we're talking about legends here. For me, if y'all were asking the question that Wayne Gretzky went to California and left the Edmonton Oilers and the hockey, that was Wayne Gretzky the Great. I could tell you when that happened. I could tell you exactly where I was. But I got a question for you. Who remembers that Dan Marino played his last starter on January 2nd, 2000? Can anybody tell me that they know who Dan Marino is? Okay, now we got some hands up in the air. We know who he is. We may not remember the day he played his last starter, but that was the infamous day for the Miami Dolphins. Their starter that they'd had, he started in 1983 as a rookie, came in and started and never looked back. Broke records like crazy. He most passing yards in a single game. Number of touchdowns thrown in a season. Number of pass completions for a career. And it went on and on and on and on. Dan Marino became a legend within the Miami Dolphin organization. Do we agree? Anybody in the Miami area, if you just mention even Dan Marino today, if they're local, they'll tell you stories about what happened and what game, when this happened. Am I right? Isn't that what legends do to you? They leave lasting impressions that's almost inhuman what they could do, right? That's a legend. It was unthinkable that he would retire, but he did, like legends will. For the next 18 years, they had 18 different starters for the Miami Dolphins. To fill those shoes was almost impossible in the mind of the humans that were trying to run that organization. It wasn't going to happen. Now, that's just starters. I don't know how many come into play and are now lost. Maybe played one game. Maybe win a few. Maybe got injured. Maybe they were going to be the next great. But then they get injured. And that happened, too, with Miami. They get the guy in there. It's like, this is the one. Boom, get injured. Oh, keep looking. Keep digging, you know. And so that was how Miami Dolphins tried to replace a legend. Does anybody know who the quarterback is for Miami Dolphins right now? Hasn't happened yet, has it? There's no legend behind the throwing arm in Miami Dolphins. So this is how we look at the book of Judges. Who were the last two most famous individuals involved in the Jewish history just before they went into the Promised Land? Who was the number one that got them out of Egypt? Moses. Moses, was he considered a bit of a legend? Did they all kind of quote back and talk about the history with Moses? Moses, right? Wow, he was a legend. Wow. And there was a few before that even. They knew Jacob, right? And they knew these big names. Abram becomes Abraham. Wow, I'm not an Abraham. Wow, he was great. So who was the next one after Moses? Joshua. How many did they go between Moses and Joshua before they come up with Joshua? No, none. The Israelite nation had something that was extremely unique. And God put it this way, right? It didn't happen by accident. There was a second legend right behind Moses, wasn't there? What was he famous for? Pardon? He was famous for the 10 Commandments. He led the Israelites out of there. He provided the laws that God gave him to the people. He was there. He saved them out of bondage, right? Whether they appreciated it or not at times, he did. Okay, so Moses is the legend that got him out and saved the people, took them out of Egypt, right? What did Joshua do? He conquered, didn't he? He went in and he fulfilled the promise that was given to the people. Moses couldn't do it because he had what? He died. Why did he die before he went in? Because he's struck. He sinned. You know what? These were men, weren't they? They made mistakes too. Dan Marino missed a few passes, right? But the Israelite people remember these two as being legends. God made them legends. We know that. But now what happens? They're in the promised land. Have they conquered all of the promised land? Joshua's gone now, so he was the conqueror, Chris said. So have they conquered the entire land of Canaan? Or Canaan, because you said in locals, right? Canaan. Have they conquered all of Canaan? No. Thank you. What happens to a nation when you stop doing what God tells you what to do? Yeah, there are consequences. There will be consequences regardless of how that is. There's consequences for obedience and there's consequences for non-obedience. We've got two sides of the playing field. And you know what? You can't be lukewarm. You got to decide which one you're going to do, right? Well, the Israelites, we're going to see it all the way through the book of Judges. One after another, after another, after another. So this is an introduction. What is it about the book of Judges that we got to try and pull out of it for us to be able to keep our smile? Otherwise, man, we're all going to go out here, our heads hanging down. They can say, well, that was a great class. Yeah, you know, good thing we don't have him next week. What are our big steps within Bible times right up into the book of Judges? What's the very first thing that we see when we open the book of Genesis 1? Creation. In the beginning, God created heaven and the earth, right? Famous verse. We all know it. Creation. Then what happens? The fall of man, right? Fall of man. I would not call those guys, I'll turn my phone down. So we don't, Adam and Eve, we wouldn't call them exactly legends, but they're definitely in the history, right? Then we got Adam and Eve. Then we go about 1,000 years. And then what happens? The ark. It starts to rain, right? What do we have all around that ark has to be built? What do we have? Do we have people that have stayed obedient or non? Non. This is not rocket science, right? They have fallen away from God. Noah's put in place to save the people. He's going to save a remnant. And out of that's going to come the rest of our history. Am I right? Just quick question again. Why? What was God's purpose of the ark? Save obedient souls. And what's the purpose of that? What does God have in store for us throughout Scripture? We see it because we're reading into it. Christ. Everything we do, everything we see, when I say we as a people, everything that we see happening within Scripture has a purpose, does it? Does it not? And that purpose, if we can keep that in our hearts, that's how we grab joy out of Scripture regardless of where we're at. There's nothing that says in Scripture, I'm going to keep you happy. He's going to keep you blessed. But I'm not going to keep you happy. I'm going to keep your blessings flowing. I'm going to give you grace and I'm going to give you peace. That doesn't mean I'm going to make you happy all the time. We just had someone we know fairly close to us lost 2 family members. They passed away. That individual's really mad at God right now. Did God say that he would take death away so we could be happy? No. That's not what we're about. We have to keep remembering that God's blessings come, and that's what gives us happiness regardless of where we are. There's a purpose. And so, so we see Noah, I'm guessing when he was listening to those, if you could hear it, all those people moaning and groaning and yelling, and do you think Noah says, yes, I did it? Or what was going through his heart and his mind? Was it, what's that? I think Chris is right. I think Noah was not that guy that got on that boat and said, yes, I did it. I won. Looking over and saying, I won. You guys all lost. I'm on the boat. You're not. I don't think that's how Noah thought. I don't think he got in there all smiles and giggles and they put their party hats on. Yes, Phil? Nice. Yeah. Exactly. Phil's right. What he just said, if you couldn't hear, and for those watching, Phil's saying that when Noah looked over that side, if he could, and he looked down there, that was his other family. Not just his 3 sons and their wives and his wife. Those were the family that he had grown up with and helped and tried to get them on, but they wouldn't. Oh, how painful that would have been. They didn't get on there happy and have a party, I don't think. But they were blessed, and they knew that. But we're alive. What are we going to do with this life? Are we going to make a difference? And we know we will. We know they do. Some good, some bad, or we don't get to the book of Judges. Okay? So, Israel, and I like this here. Israel as a nation, are they supernatural at this point? No. No, they're on Noah's Ark. It's not there yet. But they're going to come. And is this part of God's plan, to have an Israelite nation? Yes, yes. I think it's important to realize this. Yes, there is going to be an Israelite nation. But do you know in the book of Judges, they're basically referred to about 180 sometimes as a tribe. Only one time are they referred to as a nation in the book of Judges. They are a people kind of floundering. Where did they just come out of? As we go into the book of Judges, we know they've been taken out of Egypt. And what happens while Moses is kind of in charge there? What are they doing? Walking around in a wilderness, getting their feet dirty day after day after day, and they watch a generation go down and die, and then a new generation goes into the promised land. Are they an established nation? Are they strong and powerful? Or are these people watching them come up and take down their cities thinking, those are the people who are out lost in that wilderness. You think they get a GPS or something, right? So that's what we see. So we go into, and what is the very first verse? Turn to the book of Judges. Believe it or not, we're actually going to get into the book of Judges already. What is the very first book in Judges? How does it start? Wow. Okay, so in that verse, right? This is after the death of Joshua. People are inquiring of the Lord. What? Pardon, Jody? How do we win? How do we do this? Are they scared? Are they a confident people ready to go, swords in the air, screaming, that we got the ghost of Joshua with us, here I come? Or are they kind of like dazed? And yeah, they're dazed. What do we do now? Where are we going to go? They have not written the book of Judges yet. They are entering the book of Judges now. They don't have what we're going to talk about in our class. They don't have the history to be able to look at it and say, oh, that's why that happened, right? It's like everything else we see in Scripture. Was there confusion with the apostles when Christ came? Was Christ a conqueror? We better all say, yes! Right? He conquered what? Sin through death. Like he died and then was raised. He was a conqueror, the greatest of all time. And when the apostles, they were celebrating that on the cross. Look at, he's dying. Yes, he's a conqueror. Is that what they thought? They were lost. They were hiding. They thought they'd be next. Now, they were in a sense, but they didn't understand exactly what that meant. It's nice to have you folks here today. Tim, wife, it's nice to see you back. And so as we look around and we know that there are things happening, these people are scared. And now they don't have it. After so many years, they don't have it. But they're entering another era. Just if somebody would just go to the first chapter of Ruth and read us the very first verse of Ruth. What's there? What does that tell us? It's the very next book after the book of Judges. What does it read? Okay, thank you. So the book of Ruth begins by saying it is the time of the Judges. How many of us have a nickname or have heard the nickname for the book of Ruth? What is the book of Ruth about? Waiting for you, Boaz. You know, it's like the Harlequin romance of the Bible, isn't it? Oh, you know, oh, he's so cute. I'll lay at his feet and I'll get married. You know, the book of Ruth was a beautiful love story, is it not? This is during the time of the most negative book that we're about to study, comes out a beautiful, beautiful love story. Let's keep reminding ourselves of that. There's something beautiful that's coming out of this. And it's how we look at it. The book of Ruth showed individuals that were true to God regardless. True to God regardless of a situation that was good, bad, or ugly. That was a famine during the most beautiful love story. And so we can always see these things happen over and over and over again where God's in control so we can be happy. Give it to Him. It's going to work out. These are the lessons we're going to continue to learn as we go through the book of Judges. Yes?
The one thing that just dawned on me in the book of Ruth, I've always wondered why in the world that they went to Moab. You know, they were supposed to be in the promised land, even during the famine. Wouldn't they have faith that God would take care of them there, considering everything that took place in the wilderness for 40 years? I mean, God took care of them there. Why wouldn't they take care of them in the land of Canaan during the famine? And I've been sort of harsh on, but I remember the book of Judges tells me the school of thought was that everybody just did what was right in their own eyes.
Nice.
And so there was, I don't know that they even thought about that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The title of the entire lectureship was called Everyone Did What Was Right in His Own Eyes. We see that twice. The book of Judges just laid out. We're gonna hit those several times as we're going through the series of lessons. There's a reason why people didn't put trust in God. And that becomes more of that sobering thought. So, what usually, in Scripture, up to the time of Christ, what would end an era? What would usually end an era? Was that? Captivity. That's one way to look. Often it ended with captivity. That's right? loss of identity, right? Now you're captive. Oh, the great nation of Israel, where are they? Oh, they're down in the trenches digging rocks. Oh, what a nation, right? So, but we have death too, right? We have death. With Noah, he died. With Moses, he died. Joshua, he died. And these were great changes in the nations. But the difference when we get to the Gospels, a new era that we call the Christian era will begin. But how does it begin? This is what was so different, and it was coming down the pipe for these people if they would just figured it out. What was the difference between the Christian era and every single era prior to that? There was a life, a resurrection. He was raised from the dead. And that's been the difference that is unique to the Christian eras. We have a Christ that has risen. And so we have, as we go through the Scripture, an opportunity to continue to see that as this nation is developing, right, this tribe, 12, together, collective, which I like what the author said about this here, is what did the 12 tribes that were put together for the Israelites, what did it do for them as a people? If they weren't a nation, what would 12 tribes do, and what would they have to do in order to make this work with God? What would they have to do? How many of us were at hockey yesterday? Okay, all right. Okay, we had like maybe about 10 that are in here. They were at hockey yesterday. All right. We had 2 areas on the field. Okay, there were 2 areas on the field. I heard Joanna was like amazing at one of them. She wasn't there yesterday, but I was the time before. She was amazing. They kept commenting how Joanna did this. She done this. But there are 2 areas on the field. Okay, can anybody tell me that was there yesterday? What are the 2 areas on the field? Thank you. There are 2. In almost any sport, there is an offense and a defense. Am I right? I hear it was the defense for you. You were like crazy good there, it said. Okay, so we got offense and defense. Right now, that defense, let's say, has 3. Normally you have 2. There are 3 on defense, okay? Now, when Owen's out there, okay, versus when my son Andrew, who's there yesterday, and Janessa are out there it is, back in there, all right? If they're on that defense, and let's say I've got the Armstrong family coming in on offense. There's 4 of them. They're crazy good, okay? They are coming in. Are they coming in where Kay's like this looking at the fence, and Joanna's over looking this way here, going the other direction, like this here, and stick in the air, and, Royce, and, is that how they're coming in as an offense? How are they coming in? Together. They are a team, aren't they? They're coming together as a unit, the Armstrong unit, right? And I've got the Johnson unit on defense, right? And they're watching it, and they're as a team effort, right? You see, if you have 12 tribes, and they're in different regions, which they were, right? 11, but we know that, what I mean. And you got these tribes all together. What happens if they work together as a team? They're powerful, aren't they, with God on top? Who was their king? Who was their king? God. God was their king. They were tribes. They weren't a nation yet. God's teaching them, if you guys work together, we can do anything. There's no goaltender in the world that's going to stop the Armstrong family when they're a team. As hard as that defense is going to play, they're going to think there's nobody going to score on our goal as long as we're a team. And they're going to play hard. And they're going to play. So, in the book of Judges, we've got a bunch of tribes that got to play together. And when they don't, that's how the book ends. How does the book end for the tribes of Israel? What happens to one of their tribes? Anybody know? They almost try and annihilate the Benjamin tribe. They bring them down to 600 men. There is a civil war at the end of the book of Judges. And it comes back to being a team. The church is our team. You agree? How many of you came in this morning reluctantly, said, I don't want to be a part of that team, right? I'm gonna put a little plug in for the North Jefferson congregation. All my kids have been able to get home at different times this year. And Aaron and Jacqueline were here, and they came out. They came out to the Grotas after the Sunday night Bible study, first Sunday they were here. And they got to there, and I knew it was a great evening. At one point, Chris said, we need to do some hymns. And so we got the hymn books out, and it was beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. We had such a nice evening. We got home, and Aaron and Jacqueline, I could hear them. They weren't in the room with me, but I could hear them say, man, what a wonderful congregation. Boy, that was exciting. And then they come out of the room, and Aaron says to me, do you realize, Dad, that we haven't been together as a church family since February of last year, and it was at our house, and it was a dismal showing, he said. They were having a Bible study for they call TNT, Teen Night Together, or something like that, and they hadn't been together since March before the COVID started, and it was dismal showing. And he said, that was so encouraging. So then we turn around, and we have our New Year's Eve party here, and Andrew and Kylie come out, and they're over there, and they're having a good time, and they're just you wouldn't know they weren't part of the congregation here because they were just enveloped into the games and everything that's going on. And it's time to go. We've talked. They got here at 4:30 in the morning after driving through the night because Andrew worked nights. They had to put their store in order the night before, and they juggled everything to be here. They're tired, right? And they get there, and they're playing those games, and it's coming on to 11 o'clock, and out comes Family Feud, and I said, guys, I know you want to go. We can let some of them stay, and we'll take Owen, and we'll go with you guys. We can get home. And there's Kylie over on the side with Andrew. I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. Thank you. That's teamwork. That's a family. We tricked them. No, you are. We get strength when we're together, when we're a team. Phil. And then Melanie. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. So they did. They won. They did it. They became a team. The team that Christ had a plan for them. There you go. That's right. Melanie, did you guys saw your hand? Okay. Thank you. So, just want to, believe it or not, we've got to wrap it up here. Turn to Judges chapter 1, verse 17. Promise we're going to have a lot more of delving into the scripture, looking at the different areas that each lesson will provide for us and understanding where happiness comes from and how we get through this negativity. But Judges 1, verse 17, can someone read that for us? That's good. Thank you. Could someone else jump over and keep that thought where Steve just read that? Turn over to Deuteronomy 7 and read the first 5 verses. Deuteronomy chapter 7, the first 5 verses. destruction, or is that total annihilation? Total annihilation. What was God trying to do for his people? This was way back when, the book of Deuteronomy. A chosen people, my heading says on that section. A chosen people. They were chosen. What were they to do? Taking out temptation. Clean it up. Get rid of temptation, clean it up. You come in there as a nation led by God, a king of you to be in your hearts. I'll give you these other judges to help. What was the purpose of the judge? Normally the judge was there to save them from themselves. Am I right? The judge was there to save the people from themselves. And so when this happens and we see this example and they get in there and they don't follow that, they don't stay together as a team. Matter of fact, I just heard, I think, in Chris's lesson, where he said that the people got in there and they got comfortable. Oh, we got enough land. They got comfortable and they got lazy and they stopped doing what Joshua told them to do, or that God had told them to do through Moses and Joshua. And so they kind of lose it. So let's turn to the book, the last chapter in Judges. And I'm going to read from the last chapter, but in chapter 20, verse 43. Surrounding the Benjamites, they pursued them and trod them down from Noah as far as opposite Gibeah on the east. 18,000 men of Benjamin fell, all of them men of valor. And they turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon. 5,000 men of them were cut down in the highways, and they were pursued hard and given. And 2,000 men of them were struck down. So all who fell that day in Benjamin were 25,000 men who drew the sword, all of them men of valor. But, verse 47, 600 men turned and fled toward the wilderness to the rock of Rimmon, and remained at the rock of Rimmon 4 months. And the men of Israel turned back against the people of Benjamin, and struck them with the edge of the sword, the city, men, and beasts, and all that they found, and all the towns that they found, they set on fire. They did to themselves what God had told to do the surrounding nations. Now, that remnant, they ended up saving that remnant. They allowed them to live, but they did to themselves what they were told to do for the nations. What would have happened if they would have done this the way God had planned? We really don't know, do we? But we have a pretty good idea what would have happened and where they would be today if they would have stayed with God. We know that. The book of Judges mentions in 17:6, 18:1, 19:1, and 21:25, it mentions that there was no king in Israel. We are well aware of the fact that the nation that would become a nation did not have a king. But then there was Judges 3:8, 3:12, 4:2, 4:17, 11:12, 11:17. What do you think is being mentioned there about the surrounding nations? That they have a king. And I want us to take ourselves back. Let's not beat these people up. Let's take a moment and say, you have all these surrounding nations with these great kings that are leading them, right? And you got this Israelite that comes into their midst and he says, oh yeah, well, we had our God talk to us through a bush and told us to take your land. A bush? Yeah, a bush. What does he call himself? I am. You want to hear about our king, what he did? Do you know he started as a young man in the palace? Oh, who else do you have? Oh, that guy that lives in the bush, he actually lived in the palace, but he moved away from that. He went and lived with some sheep. Oh. Well, you know what else my king did? My king has this, and he did that, and he's got wealth, and and he hands me these things, and they're mine, and I can do what I want with them. Well, unless he says I can't, but, well, my king is great. Oh. The Lord is great. If the Israelites could have said, no, my God is my king, and you cannot defeat him, they wouldn't have. But they would have gotten together, and God would have led them. We're going to continue to go through the book of Judges. We're going to take these individual judges. We're going to take these and help us to understand what these deliverers were doing and why and how they did what they did. But as we go through the book of Judges, let's keep our heart open, regardless of the negativity.